In other words, non-frequently used dialogues will remain untranslated. So that will eventually frustrate some of the users, especially the documentation might not be translated as you expected in this one. These are some of the issues. And as you suggested, there is a possibility of crashing these suggestions as mentioned. So this particular person suggests one particular word in German, and the other person suggests another word. It's completely different words for this particular term. How do you select the best translation out of these things? So that has to be done by the analysis engine of this server. So that's why we propose the voting mechanism. This particular word is suggested by this person and the same word is suggested by another person. So we will replace the word with the highest number of votes. Okay. And still, so we have 4 persons here. We suggest one word and here's the same word. Okay. So these 2 people suggest same word. So how can we decide which word to use in this kind of situation? So in our application, we have developed a special dialog where you can select your preferred translation. So that I think answers your question. Choose the most suitable term or the crashing situation. And once you choose something, again, your submission will be counted as a single vote. So we have done that to minimize future conflicts. Okay.
But now, sorry, one more. So, assume that we have a program and it's in the process of being translated. You know, it hasn't been closed for translation. So now I download it. I'm not really aware of all that's going on. I just want to use the program, and so I might not know that there are something that's there is actually has 4 or 5 different translations that are available for me to vote on. Is there any way for me to, I just might see that I have a particular string that appears as one thing today, and then the next time I start the program it appears as a different thing, and I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah, the confusion can happen, but ultimately I think around 5 or 6 iteration it will come to stable. We can control that using the server. I will explain how we can do that.
And do you have a cutoff point that at some point a translation becomes
We haven't implemented in this prototype. It will be good to do that. So this is going to be problematic, because if you have like thousands of strings in your application, you can't be using strings each time you restart the application. So this is obviously not going to work. So what we propose here is something like this, where the users will submit their translations, and these translations will be gathered to the server, and they will be redirected to a panel of linguists or experts. So they will analyze these words first, and then their suggestions will be pushed back to the users. That's the proposed solution so far. So it's not a completely sort of a automated process. human interaction involved in that process. So can we implement this architecture in existing applications? That's an interesting question to answer. So it's not just replacing strings, but you have to modify the behavior in this application. I mean, you have to introduce a pop-up box when you right click. So it's not just replacing strings, so it's going to be really difficult task to incorporate such an architecture to existing applications. Right? So what we propose as an alternative method is to use tooltips, as you mentioned. So what you can do is you can go to some terms, and if you hold your mouse over certain words, it will display a tooltip of translation, right? Translated word will be displayed as a tooltip. And during the implementation of this prototype, we came up with some program-related issues as well. Some of the standard dialogues like file open dialog and save as dialog, these are really tightly integrated with the operating system. So this programming language doesn't allow you to override these dialog boxes and incorporate the pop-up boxes in some text elements. That's a really problem. But still, if you have some other languages like Java where object-oriented support is really good, you can implement this kind of architecture really easily. And so in future, I would like to see in Visual Studio also property like real-time localization. So this is ideal situation for Microsoft implement this for us. Right. You can just specify the UI server, local and stuff like that. So it will do the job for us. And for other languages like Python or Java, you can just import another library, and you can mention the server and other parameters, and you use that to achieve this task. So those are some of the things that we are currently working on. Yeah. Yes, we are also thinking like in a large scale deployment model, obviously a single server would not be enough. So we have to do some load balancing if it is a cumbersome software like OpenOffice or so. So we are thinking of deploying server farms to balance the load among these servers. So we are trying to implement this as well, and a lot of problems like data synchronization problems, and we have addressed some issues in this respect. So we are trying to develop some series of prototypes to further enhance and to optimize our architecture.